Close your eyes. You're about to walk onto a construction site that hasn't been active in 2,000 years. The year is approximately 20 AD. The place, a hillside between two towns in Lower Galilee. The man you're following is in his mid-20s, strong, quiet, stone dust in his hair, calluses so thick on his palms you could scrape mortar with them. For 2,000 years, we've called him the carpenter. We picture sawdust, a wood shop, a gentleman sanding a table in soft light. That image is wrong. The Greek word in the Gospels isn't carpenter, it's tekton. And a tekton in first century Galilee wasn't a woodworker. He was a builder. Stone, wood, metal, whatever the job demanded. And in a region where timber was scarce but limestone was everywhere. Scholars estimate 9 out of 10 projects meant one thing: cutting rock. What did his hands really look like? What sounds surrounded him all day? What did the Son of God see when he looked down at his own bleeding knuckles? Today, we're walking onto his job site. Every detail grounded in archaeology. Every moment bringing you closer to the work he actually did. Let's begin where every workday began. On a path in the dark. Section 1. The proof. Before we step back in time, let me show you how we know what we know. The word tekton appears exactly twice in the entire New Testament. Mark 6:3. Is not this the tekton? Matthew 13:55. Is not this the tekton's son? 2 verses. That's everything Scripture says about his job. But archaeology fills the silence. Excavations across Galilee confirm that first-century homes were built from local limestone, not timber. Hebraic scholar James Fleming estimates that 9 out of 10 projects for a Galilean builder involved stone, chiseling, carving, stacking blocks. And 4 miles north of Nazareth sat Sepphoris, a city Josephus called the ornament of all Galilee. During Jesus' childhood, Herod Antipas launched a massive rebuilding program. Forum, paved streets, theater, public buildings. Every available tekton in the region would have been drawn to that work. Halfway between Nazareth and Sepphoris, an enormous rock quarry. These aren't guesses. This is excavated ground, and it looks nothing like the woodshop we've imagined. Section 2. The walk. The first thing you notice is the cold. It's before dawn. The air bites through your cloak. You step out of the courtyard into the dark and turn north. The path from Nazareth to Sepphoris is about an hour on foot. You walk it with Joseph. Maybe with other tektons from the village, men heading to the same construction sites, speaking in low voices, breath visible in the early light. Your tools are wrapped in cloth and slung over your shoulder. They're precious. Iron is expensive. A tekton's toolkit, adze, chisel, mallet, plumb line, handsaw, bow drill, was passed from father to son. These weren't just implements. They were inheritance. Lose a chisel, and your family feels it. The path climbs out of Nazareth, crosses a ridge, and the valley opens below. Sepphoris appears on the opposite hill. White limestone buildings catching the first light. You hear the construction noise before you arrive. The ring of iron on stone, blocks being dragged, foremen shouting in Aramaic and Greek. This is a construction site the scale of which Nazareth could never produce. Columns rising from the earth. A theater carved into the hillside. Roman engineering, Jewish labor. Greek merchants negotiating prices in the shade. And somewhere in that workforce, a teenager learning his father's trade. The cosmopolitan world didn't come to Nazareth. Nazareth walked to it every morning. We'll come back to Sepphoris. For now, follow Jesus to where the stone is cut. Section 3. The quarry. The quarry is an open wound in the hillside, white limestone exposed to the sky. Workers move through it like ants, dust-covered men crouching over rock faces, measuring, marking, striking. The sound is constant. The tap, tap, tap of iron on stone, echoing off the walls of the cut. The process starts with a seam. Workers identify a natural line in the bedrock. They chisel a row of narrow holes along it, then hammer wooden wedges in and soak them with water. The wood swells overnight. The stone cracks along the line. A block separates from the earth with a sound like a bone breaking. Now the shaping begins. And this is where the tekton earns his bread. He sits on the ground. Craftsmen in this period often worked seated. A rough block sits before him. He holds a pointed iron chisel in one hand and strikes it with a stone mallet in the other. Each blow removes a small chip. Hundreds of blows to flatten one surface. Thousands to square a single block. The dust is constant. It coats your hair, your skin, the inside of your throat. Your hands crack from the chalk. Your fingers bleed around the chisel until the calluses build thick enough to protect you. Ridges across the palms, hardened pads on the fingertips. Feel the grit between your teeth. Hear the ring of iron echoing off the quarry walls. Smell the sharp mineral scent of freshly broken limestone. This isn't a quiet workshop. This is physical labor as brutal as farming and as precise as surgery. What did Jesus see when he looked down at his own hands? Not sawdust, not splinters. Stone dust ground into the creases of his skin. Cuts that reopened every morning. The hands of a mason. Those same hands would later touch lepers and they'd be healed. Would later break bread and feed thousands. Would later be stretched across a wooden beam and nailed in place. But first, they learned to shape stone. Section 4. The build. Once the blocks are squared, they're transported to the building site. Smaller stones on shoulders. Larger ones dragged on wooden sledges or rolled on logs. At the site, the tekton becomes a builder. The foundation comes first. And the foundation was everything. You dig down through loose soil until you hit bedrock. You level it. You set the first course of stones with absolute precision, because every course above depends on this one. A tekton who built on sand, on soil too loose to hold weight, was a fool. Everyone in the trade knew what happened. The rains come, the ground shifts, the walls crack, the house collapses. Remember that. It matters later. Above the foundation, the walls rise, course by course, stone by stone. Field stones fitted together, gaps filled with smaller rocks and packed with mud mortar. The tekton checks every course with a plumb line, a string with a weight on the end, held against the wall to ensure it's vertical. 1 degree off at the bottom, and the wall leans a foot by the time it reaches the roof. Then the lintels, heavy stone beams placed above doorways and windows. Then the roof, timber beams laid across the walls, covered with cane mats and packed earth plaster, rolled smooth with a heavy stone cylinder. But the tekton didn't only work in stone. Justin Martyr, writing around 150 AD, specifically said Jesus made plows and yokes. A plow beam had to be straight and strong. A yoke had to fit the specific animal. Too tight and it chafed. Too loose and it couldn't pull. My yoke is easy, Jesus would later say, and my burden is light. That wasn't a metaphor he borrowed from somewhere. That was shop talk. He had spent years carving yokes that fit. He knew the difference between a yoke that crushed an animal's neck and one that let it work without pain. He was describing his own craftsmanship. Section 5. Midday. The sun is high. The heavy work pauses. You find shade against a half-built wall. Your back aches. Your hands are white with dust. Someone passes a clay jar of water. You drink, splash your face, drink again. The midday meal is simple. Flatbread, barley, maybe olives, dried figs, cheap wine mixed with water. You eat with your hands, tearing bread, sharing from a common dish with the men around you. A tekton wasn't wealthy. Rabbinical texts place builders in the lower middle tier, above day laborers, below merchants. You earned enough to eat, rarely enough to save. A week of sickness, a broken tool could push the whole family to the edge. Joseph likely died before Jesus' ministry began. He vanishes completely from the Gospels after the childhood narratives. That would have made Jesus the eldest son, the primary breadwinner, supporting a mother and at least 6 siblings, walking to Sepphoris every morning, bringing home wages that kept the household alive. He wasn't preparing for ministry during those years. He was paying for bread. Section 6. Listen like a tekton. Now listen to Jesus teach. But this time, listen as a builder would hear it. Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. Every tekton in the crowd nodded. They had all seen it. Foundations laid on loose soil, walls that cracked in the first rainy season, houses that folded. Jesus wasn't reaching for a clever illustration. He was describing a job gone wrong. Professional vocabulary. A Tuesday. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The builders, in Greek, the tektons. His people, his trade. A cornerstone is the first stone set. Every wall is measured from it. Every angle depends on it. If that stone is crooked, the entire building is crooked. Jesus heard that psalm and understood it as insider language. The stone his own colleagues would throw aside because it didn't look right. That's the one God chose as the foundation. On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Build, rock, foundation, church as construction project. The Son of God spoke like a builder because he was one. Peter, who spent 3 years watching Jesus, later wrote, "You yourselves, like living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house." Living stones, shaped by the chisel, fitted together, stacked into something that would last. Peter wasn't writing poetry, he was writing memory. And Paul, like a wise master builder, I laid a foundation. The Greek word, architecton, the chief tekton, the foreman, the one who sets the first stone and ensures every stone after it is true. The entire New Testament is saturated with the language of construction. Foundations, cornerstones, living stones, houses on rock. And all of it flows from a man who spent nearly 2 decades cutting limestone on a Galilean hillside. Section 7. The walk home. Late afternoon. The light goes golden. The tools are wrapped. The dust is shaken from your cloak as much as possible. It never fully comes out. The walk home is downhill. An hour. Nazareth appears below, a handful of stone houses on the hillside, smoke rising from courtyard ovens. The smell of baking bread reaches you before you reach the village. Your mother is in the courtyard. The bread is ready. Lentils stew in a clay bowl. You wash at the cistern. The water turns gray with limestone dust. You sit on a mat. The family gathers around a single dish. The blessing is spoken, the same one you've heard every day of your life. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. The bread was made from grain your mother ground that morning. The house you sit in was built by hands like yours. The water you drink was caught from rain on a roof your father laid. Everything in this life is made, shaped, built, earned, Nothing arrives on its own. After the meal, the roof, the flat roof where the family goes as the stars come out, where the dust settles, where the ache fades, where young Tekton looks up at the heavens and prays the same prayer his mother taught him. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. The Lord is one. The village is quiet. Oil lamps flicker in neighboring courtyards below. On the distant ridge, the faint glow of Sepphoris. Somewhere, a dog barks. The stars appear, not one by one, but by thousands. No light pollution, no electricity. The ancient sky in its full glory. And on this rooftop, the man who built houses all day sits beneath the heavens his own hands made. Section 8. The payoff. Step back now. Look at everything we've seen. The path in the dark, the tools over his shoulder, the quarry, the ring of iron on stone, the dust in his lungs, the calluses on his hands, blocks shaped one blow at a time, foundations dug to bedrock, walls rising course by course, yokes carved to fit, the wages that kept his family alive, the bread shared in a courtyard he could have built himself. This was Jesus' life, not for a season, for nearly 20 years. From the time Joseph first put a chisel in his hands, to the day he set those tools down and walked to the Jordan River. He didn't hover above human labor. He entered it completely. He knew the weight of stone. He knew the price of iron. He knew what it felt like to work all day and come home with nothing left. The same hands that broke bread at the Last Supper had spent decades breaking stone. The same hands that healed the blind had bled around a chisel. The same hands that were nailed to a cross had first learned to build homes for ordinary families. When he said, "I go to prepare a place for you," he wasn't speaking in metaphors. He was speaking as a tekton, a builder, a man who knew what it meant to lay a foundation, raise the walls, and make a place ready for someone he loved. Picture him, tools wrapped, walking toward the site, ready to build. That's exactly what he's doing right now. If this changed how you pictured Jesus, hit that like button and subscribe. Share this with someone who works with their hands. And tell me in the comments, what hit you hardest? The stone instead of wood? The walk to Sepphoris? The yoke? I read every comment. I'll see you in the next one.